So we have the state of the ball kind of figured out, right? And by state of the ball, state variables, private variables, right? We know where the ball's going to be located. We know how the ball's going to be moving. We know the size of the ball, all right? Now, in draw, we don't have access to those variables in draw, though, right? So how do we draw this thing? Well, we shouldn't be drawing this thing from outside the ball, because what knows how to draw the ball? Why don't we just put it inside the ball, right? The only thing that should worry about drawing the ball is the ball itself. So we should say, hey, ball, you know how to draw yourself. And then ball should look at its private variables and figure out how it's going to draw itself. So that's the action part of it, all right? So we have the state part of it. That's these variables, right? And the action part of it is these methods that do stuff with the variables, okay? And so that's what that means when we say we have encapsulation. We have put together these variables. It's a really simple idea. These variables with methods that act on these variables. What would a method that act on these variables look like? Well, draw would be one. This thing should know how to draw itself, so we don't have to deal with it. We can just say, hey, draw yourself. So how do we do that? Well, let's do it real quickly. So we're in draw in our main function, and in ball, we need to introduce a new method. So I will call this public, and I'll call it draw ball, all right? Or place ball or something. It could be called any of those. I won't call it draw because I think there's a problem if you call it draw, because it collides with this function, and you might be able to say like this. No, I just don't call it draw. Don't use setup or draw at all. That's just a processing thing. Okay. And so we're gonna make it public so we can invoke it from out here, draw ball. Okay, and then we're going to return. Well, what do we return? It's gonna draw on the screen. Do we expect an answer to come back? No, right? It's not returning a number or anything. It's just drawing straight to the screen. It's like outputting to the console. So in that case, we'll make it void, saying, okay, we don't need to output anything, all right? And then we will, well, do we want to pass anything into it? Do we need anything to figure out how to draw this thing? Well, we have enough to draw this thing, right? Maybe if we want to color it or something, we could add more variables, and we could do that later. But right now, we got the ellipse width and height, and we got the current location. There's no reason we can't draw this thing on the screen, okay? So in here, we can draw our ball, okay? And in here, we can invoke draw on our ball, okay? All right, so how do we draw our ball? Well, you know how to draw the ball. Here, pause the video and write the code to draw the ball in here. I assume you all did, and so we will do it together now. If you guessed center X, center Y, ellipse width, not guessed. You didn't guess. You knew. Height. We've done this only 9 million times before, right? Okay, so that's us drawing, right? And how do we invoke it? Well, we invoke it with something called the dot operator. And you've seen this before, but now you kind of know what it is. So if I say dot, we can come down here, and one of the things is draw ball. You might remember from earlier in the semester, you might be saying, wait, we have a bunch of stuff here. Why we didn't do all these methods? And some of you might remember this from earlier in the semester. If you're a Java class, you inherit from the ultimate Java class, which is object, okay? So everything in Java is an object, right? And so our class is inheriting from object, and object has all of these things that we should eventually look at, all right? One of them is we should define when two balls are equal to each other. We'll talk about that, right? We talked about it before. We should also define how we're going to output it to the console in case someone wants to read the current state of our ball, for example, off the console. Okay, so we'll figure those out in upcoming videos, but that's why there's more than just our draw ball, which is our method that we just did. But let's invoke it. All right, so we're gonna say my ball.drawBall and big ball.drawBall. Okay, and now we should, if everything worked out, see two balls. One of them will be this ball, right, drawn on the screen, and the other one will be this ball drawn on the screen. Okay, so I'm gonna hit stop and I'm going to hit play, and what do we see? Wow, we see our my ball and the big ball, right? So my ball's in the center and big ball's in like this 1/3 space, I believe. Yeah, width 1/3, height 1/3. Okay, and so pretty cool. And this ball is 60 by 60. This ball is 40 by 40. 60 by 60, right? A lot bigger than 40 by 40. You think, I don't know. This is the whole thing. All right, so very cool. All right, and so now we're gonna do a little bit more. In our class, what I want you to do, and we'll see it below. I'll ask you a few questions and then I'll give you this as an assignment. What I want you to do is I want you to come up with a way to update the ball. So come up with a method that updates the ball. Okay. And come up with updates the ball position. I'm sorry. Position. Okay. And come up with a method that checks for collisions. Okay, so updating the ball position, all right, or checks for collisions would be update the ball velocity based on whether it's collided or not, right? And update velocity, okay? All right, so think about updating the position, right? What is that going to entail, all right? And then think about what is it going to entail to check for collisions and update the velocity. All right. And if you're able to figure those out, then you can invoke them from here, right? Draw ball, update position, update, check for collisions. Okay. And then in our next video, we'll put it all together and make it even simpler. All right, so you remember how to update the position, all right, and you should also be able to check for collisions, okay? Maybe I should scaffold it a little bit, so I'll scaffold it with some questions below, and I'll see you in the next video.